Well, what's going on, everybody? This is Shok, and today I'm not going to really do a recap of the direct or my impressions. I mean, you guys pretty much got the gist of how I felt about it in that video. But real quick, I will say that, like I said in the comment section, when the video was posted, I'm not going to go too hard on the direct because I think that the direct serves the purpose of getting a lot of fodder out of the way, so that way once they get to around E3 or at the E3 time, they don't have to worry about all that small, more irrelevant kind of stuff. But the Mewtwo trailer, we knew that was coming. That was great. Luke's getting announced was great. The whole ballot thing was really unexpected and great, where we could actually tell Sakurai what characters we would like to see next as DLC for the game. That was cool. The Fatal Frame 4 localization and the Mario Kart DLC in the patch was great stuff. Only problem was that all that stuff consisted of like 8 minutes out of a 48-minute direct. You know what I'm saying? That's how I weigh the quality of a direct. I know some people maybe weigh it differently, which is why some people are so like polar opposite. Somebody will say it's trash. Somebody will say they thought it was amazing. Well, it's pretty much because people weigh the directs differently. I kind of do it by like kind of a time basis and also a little quantity basis, in there as well. Like, yeah, they can have 8 minutes of great stuff, but if the rest of the 40 is amiibo and Animal Crossing, a TLC home designer, like I'm not going to be enthralled by that direct, But anyways, to the topic matter at hand, I want to specifically talk about Shin Megami X Fire Emblem because you guys saw my initial reaction, and I can understand why you guys would think I was thinking a certain way, about that game or towards that game. But I wanted to pretty much elaborate on my thoughts of that game and my reaction. I'm gonna explain why I gave that reaction I gave. And I'm pretty sure everybody will understand this exactly because, like the title of this video says, completely not what we expected. Completely unexpected. Nobody expected that. Instead of Shin Megami Tensei X Fire Emblem, it pretty much turned out to be Persona 5 Wii U Edition. You see what I mean? But I'm going to explain what my main problem, outside of what I just said, my main problem with that reveal was, when I saw Shin Megami Tensei X Fire Emblem, and I never played a Shin Megami Tensei game, but I have seen them. I knew what those games were. I know what that series is, right? And I know it's kind of a darker series, one of Atlas's darker series. And then there's Fire Emblem, and while Fire Emblem isn't happy-go-lucky and all that stuff, Fire Emblem is a fairly serious series. This stories are serious. It's always kingdoms warring. There's real death. The characters be mourning each other's deaths, and stuff like that. So, Fire Emblem isn't like bloody, gory, nothing like that. It's never been, on that level, whatever. There isn't like dark stuff, but Fire Emblem has been a fairly serious series. So when I was like, okay, Shin Megami Tensei, dark, Fire Emblem serious, this is gonna be a pretty cool, kind of, edgy RPG or whatever. This is gonna be dope. That was my initial impression. And I know for 99% of y'all, it was the exact same way. So don't act like, well, you shouldn't have had that impression because damn well you were thinking the same thing too. You see what I'm saying? And then I also thought and I know it wasn't necessarily footage or it didn't necessarily explain the concept of the crossover, but when they had, the reveal trailer or whatever, with the Shin Megami character scrolling and the Fire Emblem character scrolling, I was like, oh, okay, so this is going to be like, I'm going to have like Roy and Ellawood and Ike and Marth, and I forgot the dude's name from Radiant Dawn, the guy with the daggers and the green hair. Sorry with the S, I forgot, but, Micaiah or whatever, and, I'm going to have my nigga Hector and, Lynn and, all these, like, they're all going to be together in the same, time zone, the same universe, and they're going to be, like, fighting against the Shin Megami characters, and all the Shin Megami characters are going to be together, and they're going to be fighting against the Fire Emblem characters, but then they're going to realize that, they're fighting for the same cause, they're all good guys, and so they're going to have to team up to fight the villains that have also joined forces, from the different series, and I know that sounds generic, but that's pretty much the gist of what everybody, and I'm not saying me, that's pretty much mostly what everybody was expecting or, wanted from this thing. And then it turns out that it's Persona, pretty much. But pretty much the main reason why I gave that reaction is because this is the best way I could word it. It's not necessarily the Shin Megami Tensei universe crossed over with the Fire Emblem universe. It's more of Shin Megami Tensei concepts crossed over with some Fire Emblem concepts. You know what I'm saying? It's not the universes coming together. It's more of just ideas from those universes coming together. And that's pretty much where my main disappointment comes from. And I know that might be presumptuous. I know that was just the first trailer. And so, who knows? They could actually have, these Fire Emblem characters in there, stuff like that. But I know a lot of people have said, oh, they saw, Crom and Martha and Tiki in the trailer. I saw the people they're talking about. I don't think that's necessarily them. I think it's just characters who are inspired by them, And that word inspired. Let me use that word right there. This game is pretty much an inspirational crossover of Shin Megami and Fire Emblem. See what I'm saying? Rather than an actual direct crossover between these two universes. And that's pretty much where my reaction came from, I didn't think the game looked terrible. And I'm going to get into that in a second. The game does look terrible. It's an Atlas game. I can't really think. I haven't played too many Atlas games, but at the same time, I still can't think of a bad Atlas game, It's just from a setting, standpoint. You see what I'm saying? It's not what I expected. It's not what I wanted. Now, that being said, like I said in the Facebook group yesterday, you guys saw my reaction. I was like, what is this weeaboo stuff? This is so weeaboo. I like anime, I like Japan, I like Japanese culture, yeah, all that, but I'm not an otaku, right? I'm not a weeaboo. I casually like anime. I'm not one of those people, and no offense to anybody who may be like this. I know some people like this. I'm not saying you're terrible people. I'm not saying you're lesser people. I'm just making an example here of, I'm letting you guys know, where I'm at, in regards to, anime and all that stuff. I like anime. I'll watch 2 animes at a time. I think most animes these days are overrated generic crap, to be honest, with like few exceptions such as Parasite and Death Parade. But anyways, I'm not one of those people who you go to their Facebook profiles and they're such weeaboos, right, where you can't even find a single picture of themselves, right? That's not me. I'm not on that level, right? All their pictures, right, are of anime characters, right? Like I'm not on that. I'm not on that level. I like anime, but I'm not gonna watch a show because it's anime. That's how weeaboos are. Like, I like this because it's anime. It doesn't have to be good. The story doesn't have to be good. The characters don't have to be good. Whatever, all that stuff. It can be stupid, but it's anime, so I like it because I'm a weeaboo. I'm not like that, right? But yes, I think the way the game is healthy for the Wii U, in the sense that people like that I just described, it's going to bring a lot of that, fan base, that user base over to the Wii U for those who aren't already over there. You see what I mean? So, the people who are looking forward to Persona 5, kind of, by extension, through natural instincts, they're going to be interested in Shin Megami Tensei X Fire Emblem. But, yeah, like I said, most of my disappointment pretty much came from the fact that the game turned out to not have the vibe that we expected it to have, and it being like so heavy on the stereotypical, anime things, right? And they're doing this whole high school thing again, and apparently they go into this coliseum and they transform, and that's where the Fire Emblem inspiration comes in, and they have these swords and kind of this, medieval armor and stuff like that. And it's just like, this isn't what I wanted. This isn't what I expected. But like I was saying, in a Facebook group yesterday, I had made a post and on somebody's thread, and I was like, this is weeaboo shit. Let's not kid ourselves here, right? This is straight up weeaboo shit. But with that being said, that has nothing to do with the quality of the game. You know what I mean? It has nothing to do with the quality of the game. It's like, it could be a weeaboo as hell, but does that mean the gameplay is going to suffer? Does that mean the story is going to suffer? No. This game is most likely going to have a great battle system. This game is most likely going to have a great story. So while I don't want you guys to get too wrapped up in, my reaction is pretty much what I'm saying here. When I was like, oh my God, this is just so weeaboo, when I was like, doing all that or whatever. Understand that I realize that has nothing to do with the quality of the game. This is going to be a great game. I can't think of a bad Atlas game. It's just that sometimes, a game could be so heavy aesthetically on something, or, conceptually, that it could really turn me off from the game. That's kind of why I haven't played the Persona series yet to begin with. Well, I won't say that. I'll say most of the reason why I haven't played a Persona game, and I know this might sound silly, but it's a Persona fan base. And for any of you who are Shin Megami Tensei fans, I'm sure you guys understand, because while I haven't played either series really at all, I have seen that there's an obvious divide between the Shin Megami Tensei fan base and the Persona fan base, and the SMT fan base pretty much thinks that the Persona fan base is like full of these, shitty, like, weeaboo, fan fags, or whatever, stuff like that. And that's pretty much kind of where, I'm not saying I feel that way because of that, but it's something I observed. I'm like, okay, good. I'm not the only one who kind of feels this way. And again, I know that might sound silly to a lot of you guys, but I'm sure there's something in your guys' lives, or, even here in this, whole gaming thing, that's the same way with you guys, right? Like, I know a lot of people, I've been on here on YouTube for years, and I've seen a lot of people who are like, I just can't buy a PlayStation because I hate the Sony fan base. It's kind of like a matter of that. It's silly to let those things get to you. I acknowledge that. I admit that wholeheartedly, but it's tough. It's tough. It's tough to get into a series where you look at the fan base and the fan base is extremely annoying, and you don't want to be close to that fan base, you don't want to be near that fan base, you don't want to associate with that fan base. That's kind of how I've always been with the Persona series. The fan base has been really turning me off to that. And I know it's not everybody. I know there's some chill Persona fans, but for those of you like when I entered the Smash scene or whatever, and I started playing competitive Smash, I met the scene down in College Station, Texas, at Texas A&M, which is a college for those of you who don't know. And there's this building where we go down below on the bottom level, and there's TVs you can set up, right? And we'd go down there, hook up our Smash games and be playing Smash. And there's also these guys down there who would hook up, Persona 4 Arena, and they were just the most annoying, just annoying, obnoxious, loud people ever. And they would just be so heavy on just Japanese culture. Oh my God, American culture is shit. I want to go to Japan. I want to move to Japan. Oh my God, waifu. Oh, husbando. All that stuff. It's so freaking just annoying, and I don't want to be around that. And that's why I haven't played the Persona games. But for the sake of Shin Megami Tensei X Fire Emblem, as well as Persona 5, because I've been saying for a while, if you guys have been like following me on Facebook and stuff, I've been saying for a while that I need to get into the Persona series, but for the reasons I just listed, that's why I haven't. But for the sake of these two games, I'm going to try to get past all that and just enjoy the game for what it is. Like, I've always been on here on YouTube saying, gameplay reigns supreme, and of course, I will always feel that way. That's not going to change. But there is one thing that can turn me off from playing the game entirely, and that is the game's setting or the aesthetics. I guess you could also, factor in art style. I could play a game that has bad graphics texture-wise as long as the art style is good. You see what I'm saying? But I can't do the other way around. I can't have a crap art style, but texture-wise it looks good, but the art style is crap. I can't look at that. I can't look at a crappy art style. I can look at bad textures, but I can't look at bad art style. That's how I am. So if a game has a bad art style, that could prevent me from actually playing the game, despite the fact that it may look fun to me or it might be up my alley. That's the one thing that could keep me away from a game that I'm interested in from a gameplay standpoint, is the art style / setting, the aesthetics, pretty much. It could turn me off from a game. And that's kind of another reason why I haven't really played the Persona games yet. I do know that 1 and 2 are kind of darker. And then 3 and 4 is more when, the weeaboos started coming in Persona, and Persona started becoming more like, look at us, we're Japanese anime characters doing Japanese anime stuff, and we're high school students, and we're fight demons, and I don't know, whatever. But I just wanted to elaborate on why I gave that reaction. It's not because what I saw looked bad. What's the word I'm looking for? Flavor. That's the word I'm looking for. I just didn't expect that flavor, and it's not, the problem isn't that it's that flavor. It's just that flavor is so heavy. You see what I'm saying? The whole Japanese anime flavor, it's so heavy on that game. So that's why I was like, what? This is Shin Megami Tensei X Fire Emblem? Because Shin Megami Fire Emblem are nothing like what was shown, right? Like I said, that's more Persona 5 Wii U edition more than it is an actual crossover of those universes. Like I said, it's more of Shin Megami concepts with Fire Emblem concepts rather than the Shin Megami universe meets the Fire Emblem universe. That's not the vibe I got from that trailer. I'm sure that's not the vibe you guys really got from that trailer. That's why when that trailer was first shown, when people saw the Atlas and Nintendo logos, they're like, oh, it's going to be Shin Megami. But then they started showing the characters and everything. They're like, wait, what is this? The fact that we couldn't identify that was Shin Megami Tensei X Fire Emblem was a problem for me, right? Because if you're doing a crossover between two series and you see a trailer that's of that crossover, you should instantly recognize that it's that crossover. You see what I'm saying? But we couldn't. And so that's why I was so confused and kind of just, put off and stuff like that. But like I said, none of that stuff is gonna have a bearing on the actual quality of the game. You guys know me. I love fighters. I love RPGs. This is an RPG. I'm going to try to do my best to buy this game and get into it. It's gonna be hard. I'm gonna be reluctant to do so, but I'm going to try to do it. And the same goes for Persona 5. Hopefully before Persona 5, the plan is for me to buy a Vita and play Persona 4 Golden before Persona 5 comes out. But I'm going to try to do Persona 5 as well. Persona 5 looks really different. It looks really different. I like the new combat system doing on that and stuff like that. So that definitely piques my interest. And hopefully the changes they make to Persona 5 can kind of get me over that hump of not liking, Persona from a setting standpoint and the whole like, oh, Japanese anime characters, ooh, all that stuff. But those are my thoughts, guys. It's not a bad looking game, just not what we expected. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think about it down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.